last session of the day. I think there's a closing thingy after this, and then there's some nice beers, I think, and some bratwurst. I like Germany. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit about PowerShell. I am a SQL Server guy, so I cannot stop myself. I will also talk a bit about SQL Server, but what I'm going to tell you is how I attack certain problems in SQL Server, and in such a way that you can use it on other things. It doesn't have to be SQL Server. You can attack other problems. If you're a Windows domain admin or whatever, you might have a thing or two that you can reuse here. It's just my way of attacking problems. Like I said before, is this on? I am André. Oh, yeah, very important. Sponsors. You may have seen this slide already today, but I'm an organizer of a conference myself, and I know that all this stuff is not cheap. So, and also without sponsors, these events would be boring. There'd be nothing to do in the hallways and everything. So give them some attention. They make this possible. I'm Dutch, and wait a minute, who are these guys? I have no, is this hockey or something? I have not seen, they look vaguely familiar, but I have no idea. I may have seen them in the past somewhere. Of course, we share the same pain now with the football. Germans used to laugh at this, not anymore. Of course, we're now all, in Holland, we're now all fans of this guy, Max Verstappen, which usually, by the way, looks like this. I have a friend who works for Ferrari. He's a database admin for Ferrari. He does not like Max Verstappen. We have a bit of Twitter war going on during races, and you can through the Twitter you can just sense that he's doing this to the TV the whole time. Right? He's not a happy man. Anyhow. This is me. I am, like I said, I'm Dutch. If you have any questions during this thing, and you can't find the English words for it, just ask the question in German. I might be able to understand. Like I said, ich habe Deutsch gelernt von der Sendung mit der Maus. I can understand it perfectly. I just don't speak it very well because I never do it. But understanding is totally cool. Also, if you're ever a tourist in Holland and you think the Dutch people don't understand you, they are bullshitting you. They do. They do understand you. Every Dutch person understands a German. It's funny sometimes to see German people in the store ask for something in German, and the Dutch people behind the counter go, "No idea." They do. They understand. So if after the session or you remember a question, you forget to ask me during the drinks later or something, and what was that you were talking about, or what was that link, just send me an email or find me on Twitter or something, and I'll send it to you. It's no problem. So here's the thing that I want to talk about with you guys, and I only have 45 minutes, so I'm going to keep this light. Last session of the day, 45 minutes. I have like 10 slides or something. I'm going to keep this light, and I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff. And I have the tendency to talk a lot. I can talk a week about SQL Server, so as soon as I start about SQL Server, you need to keep an eye on the time with me. I'm horrible that way. The old school way of looking at problems, what we DBAs had a lot, is we had to manage SQL Server through a monitoring system. Everybody wanted a monitoring system. Doesn't matter what you have. And then the IT department would put a ticket in my name because I'm the DBA, and on my SQL Server, the CPU was above 90% for more than 5 minutes. And please do something about this. And I'm thinking, those were expensive CPUs. Let them run, right? Who cares? So I do not like how monitoring tools approach a problem. Here's another one. Your disk space is low. I get this a lot. I work for a bank in the Netherlands, and every other week, the monitoring system, this is scum. Every monitoring system has this problem. The monitoring system tells me that my available free space is below 20% and that I should do something about this. Well, I have 18 mount points and all of them added together is about 120 terabytes of space. So below 20%, I still have some free space. I'm not worried, right? My database grows at about 1 terabyte per month, which is serious stuff, but I'm not worried. So I am not very happy with the approach that these monitoring tools take. Because when would you send an alert? Because what monitoring tools don't do, and this is what I find most important, if, for instance, the backup fails, they'll tell me, your backup has failed. I see a job has an error. Please fix. But if I make a new database and I don't set up a backup, nothing fails. And the monitoring tool will go, nothing failed today. Yeah, well, something failed. I did. You need to tell me that I did something wrong. I have not set something up. There might be something more important. There are monitoring tools that can say, hey, you haven't made a backup for a whole week. Are you sure? But there's a lot of things that you can set up incorrectly, and it just never warns you about these things. Also, there are people that deliver a SQL Server to a DBA team, and this applies to all the technologies, right? You get your server with your software on it, in my case SQL Server, from a team that installs it for you, and they have a checklist. I even have them with a Word document with screenshots, and they prove to me that the SQL Server was set up correctly. They put screenshots in on how they did it, which I'm an automation guy. Don't make screenshots. That means you're clicking through something. That annoys me. That means you're going to do it differently every single time. But then you give me the server. I install a software package. The vendor of the software package changes some things underneath something, and now it's not according to specs anymore. And who checks this thing again? Nobody, right? So what I want to do is check my server for best practices every day. Every day, I want to check it. Now, let's see, where are we? Oh yeah. Before we continue, what I will do, I will slowly go into this PowerShell stuff. First of all, I will show you how I fix a problem with SQL Server, because that's important for the other story where I bring in PowerShell to check for problems in my SQL Server. So this is not a commercial, this is all freely available stuff that I use, and I give you the information that belongs to it to how I make a decision. I have an actual problem of a customer that I'll show you and what needed to be fixed. And you can do this yourself. You don't have to hire me or anything. This is not, like I said, this is not a commercial. But to be able to do that, I will need to talk about SQL Server internals in 5 minutes or something. This is like deep into the engine of SQL Server. I hope I won't put you to sleep here, but let's keep an eye on the time. All right, good. Let's say you are a query. This is a very oversimplified schematic of the SQL Server engine. Of course, very, very, very oversimplified. Let's say you are a query, and you come to the engine and you go, I am a query, I want to run on the CPU. Then SQL Server has a management system and says, fine, go wait in line, because I have a line for the CPU. It's called the runnable queue. These are the people, the queries, waiting in line to run on the CPU. If a place becomes available on the CPU, you go from runnable to running. Running is the CPU. You are allowed to do your stuff on the CPU. You get what is called a quantum. Sounds very fancy, it just means 4 milliseconds. That's all it means. You get 4 milliseconds of time. If you arrive on the CPU and you want to do something, and you need a page of memory from the memory, you need data, which in a database this happens a lot, right? You need some data, but it's not in memory, it's on the disk. It needs to be fetched from the disk. That's not your job. That's the I/O thread that does that. So now you need to wait. You don't stay on the CPU, because the I/O thread needs the CPU to do this stuff, so you need to get out of there. So SQL Server says, you know what? you don't have everything you need, so why don't you move off the CPU? You can't do anything there anyway. So go from running, and you go to suspended. This is called the wait list. You're on the wait list. And they give you a status. You are now waiting for I/O. You get a label. You're waiting for I/O. It could be various queries. They're waiting for various things. Now, as soon as then the I/O thread gets your page from disk, puts it into memory, signals the OS that that page is available, and SQL Server goes, dear query, your memory is available. You can go back on the runnable queue, wait for your turn, and get 4 more milliseconds, and do your thing. This is how the engine works internally. Now, there's a few things that you can see in this wait list, because this is important. We as problem solvers in SQL Server, look at that wait list. That's how we can see what the problem is. We can see if you're being locked or blocked by other processes who block the table because they're updating it and you want to query it, then it will just say, lock something. And you can throw memory and CPUs and faster disks at this problem until you're blue in the face. It's not going to help. Not going to help. The only thing that you're doing is you're waiting more expensively because you've bought a whole bunch of hardware and the problem stayed, right? This happens a lot if you do. We all have these managers. The thing is slow. Let's buy some memory, right? It's like going to the doctor with a broken arm, the bone's sticking out and everything, and the first thing he does is give you a flu shot because that's what most people have, right? Before looking. You don't do that. You look at this. Now, there's a few statuses that are pretty cool. There is one, if everything is there, but you use more than 4 milliseconds, because you don't have enough CPU, it's an underpowered machine or an underpowered VM, or you just do something complicated in SQL, which you shouldn't maybe do in SQL, then you overflow your 4 milliseconds, and the SQL OS, that's what it's called, takes you off the CPU, but now you're not waiting on anything. Everything is there. You just used up too much CPU. So you go from running to runnable. You get back in the queue. And then you get 4 milliseconds more, and then more, and then more, until you're done. But in the meantime, other people can run their stuff. That wait stat has a specific name. It's called SOS scheduler yield. If you see that in your wait stats, I'll show you some queries on how to get those things. Then you know that you may need to add CPU, or pump up the VM a bit more CPU, or you're doing something silly in the SQL. And you can throw CPU at it until you're blue in the face, but the SQL just takes up all the power. If you're calculating something, or splitting CSVs or something in SQL, that's expensive. Don't do that. There's another one, a wait task, is a funny one. If you see async network I/O, then developers will say, the network is slow. Sounds reasonable, right? Now, what it means is that application from the developer asked some data from the SQL Server gets it, gives it to the developer, application goes, I'll take the first row, do something complicated, do some other thing, look around, yep, done, next row. In the meantime, SQL Server has the next batch of data and goes, hello, I'm ready. So that is async network I/O. In 99% of the cases, it means slow developer or not very smart developer, slow application. How can you fix that? Fix your program, or if you can run multiple programs that do the same thing to the same SQL Server, do it, because the SQL Server is not waiting on anything, just on you. So it can handle the load. Those are handy things to know, right? You don't want to put more CPU in that SQL Server, no need. You need to put more CPU maybe in the application of the client. That might fix it, who knows? Enough SQL Server internals. This okay? Everybody got this? Okay, good. Let's go. Now, we need some friends to solve the problem. These are the friends that make free tools that are really good, cool, really good, and you can download, and they're for free for everybody. You can even, they have a specific license, you can even take them, change them, and use them completely changed. Or take them, change them, put them in a commercial application and sell it if you can. You can do anything with it. Now, this guy is Brent Ozar. Makes a lot of cool tools. I'll show you in a bit how to use that. That is Rob Sewell, and I'll continue with Rob's stuff. I was outside of the lines. I'll continue with Rob's stuff after I'll demo the stuff from Brent. But this is it's so simple to create your own monitoring system and to troubleshoot a SQL Server and to look for things that the CPU is doing too much. Who cares? So, where are we? Yes. So we'll start with Brent's stuff. It's called SP Blitz, and it does a whole lot of stuff. You can just run a script on your SQL Server, and it will do a sanity check. It will just check your SQL Server and tell, hey, you've got a database there, and it looks like you've never backed it up. Are you sure you want to do this? Maybe you want to make a backup of this thing. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes out, but there's more. So, time. I need to go faster. So, demo time, hopefully. Let's see if that works. What we're doing, that changes, always does that. Duplicate. Taking things out of presentation mode in PowerPoint, and it always switches back. Why? I was not in presenter mode. So, here's what you do. You go to GitHub, and you find the SQL Server First Responder Kit. Completely free. It's a bunch of scripts, that's all it is. You download that. There's in the bottom there's a link here somewhere. Download the latest release zip. You click on that, and you go get the source code. It downloads it. This is always a fun demo on Wi-Fi of a conference thingy. And you have the first responder kit. Zip inside is a folder, and what you need is this one. Install core blitz no query store is the simplest way to start. It has everything in one script. And the query store is specific for SQL 2016. So this one will work on anything. The query store one will only work on 2016 and higher. So I will take the install blitz no query store, double click this, go into my SQL Server, and what you can do is create a new database, tiny one, call it DBA. Create a tiny little database. And then I'll go into this DBA database, and I'll run this script. It installs a bunch of stored procedures in that DBA database. You can install them in master if you don't do anything. Totally fine. It's don't be too scared about putting don't put a lot of things in master, but a little bit is fine. So one of the things we can do now is run SP Blitz. It thinks for a bit. Make that higher. And there you go. You get a whole lot of warnings. You have your tempDB on your C drive. Don't do that. You didn't back up your database. You have weird indexes. Certain things could be totally fine, but not very common. So he warns you about it. It's up to you to figure out if it's serious in your case and make a decision. There's links in there so you can read what it means and if you should respond to that. So don't take this list and go, oh no, I need to fix everything. No, certain things might be totally cool in your situation. But this is a really good place to start. Don't hire an expensive SQL Server guy. Not needed. Look at this first. There might be a simple solution for your stuff. Now, here's another one. This is the cool part. This is this start here. Start with the blitz. But then we go to, because I need to figure out what there's blitz first. Has a bunch of parameters and I need to see the names because I'm going to type in a demo, which you should never do. I'm going to type SP blitz first, and I'm going to do output table name is blitz first, and output schema name, can I see it? Yeah, is DBO, And then there is output. There's table name, schema name. What else do we have? Database name. Database name is, and I made a database, so I'm going to call it DBA. And there's a few more. There is also, willing of the time, I might skip this, but I have let's show you. There's a few more that you have to enter. So you also do output table name file stats, output table name perfmon stats, and output table name wait stats, and output table name blitz cache. Those are you just put the table names there and you point it to that DBA database. You schedule that every 15 minutes, and there's a cleanup parameter as well. You set that to like a week or something, and just let it run. And it collects a whole bunch of information for you. Now, in your environment, you can just let that run and point your reports at it. When I troubleshoot for a customer, I'll just let it run for a day, and then I'll tell the customer, if you're done with the day of scanning, throw the job away, back that little database up, and send it to me, because it has all the information that I need. You can even have SP Blitz with the little sanity check. Also write a table to that database, so I have the Blitz with the sanity check and a whole bunch of performance information. Now, how do I analyze that? Is that why you need to hire me or something? No. Let me show you. Because in that same zip that you downloaded, also you have a Power BI report that looks at this data. You just point it at that little database that you made. Be aware of the table names. You need to get the table names right. Brent Ozar has an instruction video on his website how to do that with the command I was just typing completely. So you don't have to, what did he type? No, just go to Brent Ozar's site and get this. It's all free, even this report. And the screen is a bit shady, hazy. Let's see. What it does here is show you a graph, and you can hardly see it, but there's a line graph in the middle that says batches per second. This is basically how busy is this thing, right? That gives you an indication. The bar graphs are the weights. What kind of weights? Well, there are colors, but there's also a list. And your top weights are at the top. So remember where I was talking about the weight stats before and how it does that? And this thing seems to have SOS scheduler yield as its top weight. So for this thing, what could be the solution? Maybe it's an underpowered VM, right? Maybe the developers did something in their queries that you shouldn't do in a query, and it just eats too much CPU power. Maybe, I see this a lot. Check this when you're back at work. You've bought a new server, and it's the power plan is not on high. Your CPUs, you've bought 3 gigahertz CPUs of 4, and they're running on 900 megahertz. And the manual says, don't worry, if you start to run something serious, the CPU will kick into gear and run higher. It doesn't. I've seen it so many times with SQL Server. Buy brand new gear, and everything becomes slower. And you can just change it by taking the CPU thingy, put it from balanced into high. No change needed. You can just do it on the fly, and you can see the CPU core speed go up, and you can see the CPU relax, and your queries will be faster. Quickest change you can do. I've seen it so many times. Now, we also see here that we have a locking issue, LCK, MIX. These are all, you can also find them online what that means, but LCK, lock, you have a locking problem here. Doesn't need any hardware at all. This is an issue inside in how they query things. Somebody locks something and then somebody else wants to query it, not possible. Don't throw hardware at that problem. Won't work. And the page I/O latch, anything with I/O in the name is an I/O problem. And there's a few that don't have I/O in the name, like write log still. You could probably tell that that might also be an I/O thing, right? Now this is a 24/7 problem. This is 24 hours that I took. But I noticed, and this is where you need to look, this is where you need to look a bit. I talked about SQL Server too much. I should hurry. This is where you need, where I saw, wait a minute, there is there is these things that shoot up every hour. There's some other hidden problem there. Maybe I should zoom in a bit. So what you can do is just move. There we go. Move that to 1 day. And let's take a business day, like start at 9 o'clock, something, and stop at like 5 o'clock somewhere. Aha! There is something going on every hour in this machine. This is not fake data. This is an actual customer that I did last week. There's something going on last week at the every hour. What's going on? So you just click on the bar, and it goes. See how the wait stats changed when you zoomed in every hour? This doesn't look like a underpowered CPU problem. This is an issue with the software itself. This is all locking here. Throwing hardware at this won't make that problem once an hour go away. So now you need to take a look at what is running every hour. Well, in this specific case, there were queries found running implicit transactions. This is something stupid certain drivers do. You need to Google what that means. But they open transactions, and unless you explicitly say in your application, rollback or commit, then it will just stay open and you don't know that you opened them. It does that automatically in the background. You don't see it. Those are implicit transactions are stupid. If you Google for it, there is actually a not very friendly title from actually Brian Dozar has a video on it, why implicit transactions are the work of the devil or something. Something like that. Pretty easy to find. Doesn't have to be the problem that you have, but just know that this script from Brent will collect everything that is running every 15 minutes and issues that it sees and the wait stats and some perfmon counters, does some analysis on it, and has a free report for you so you can look if you have issues. Way more useful than looking if your CPU is busy and get alerted if it's 80% or something. There's nothing you can do with that. So far so good? Nobody bored? Maybe? Not that? Okay. Now, Brent stuff out of the way. Let's go and continue. Because only 15 minutes left, 17. Let's go to my friend PowerShell. And this is where it gets maybe a bit more interesting for people that think, SQL Server. So PowerShell has something called Pester. Pester is a library inside PowerShell. It's even built into Windows. Microsoft uses it. That allows you to test things. It's pretty simple. Green is good, red is bad. If you're colorblind, there's a plus on the left and there's a minus with more explanation, right? I actually had somebody in the audience that said colorblind, and I was, green is good, red is bad, and he went, sorry, dude. Yeah. So, I took a screenshot, and this is an example for Windows services. This has nothing to do with SQL Server. Also, Pester was originally built to test your code. It's a code testing thing. But a lot of people use it for infrastructure testing. They run a Pester test that goes out into your infrastructure and go, how many domain admins do I have in my domain? I think more than 5 is silly. I don't care about the names, but more than 5 is just stupid. So anytime you're just changing domain admin, somebody leaves, somebody enters, and you make them domain admin, and you take some rights away, and at some point you have 8 domain admins. For some reason, this thing will yell at you. Like, you have 8 domain admins. Come on. This is getting out of hand. Those are the checks that you can do to keep your environment safe and stable, under control, right? Just come up with anything that you want to test. Now, demo time again. Have you guys seen this? This is Bill Gates. This actually happened to him. He had a blue screen. I just Google for demo failed pictures. You get Bill Gates all the time. And Apple also, where the face thing doesn't work. All right. Now, let's go to a Pester test. This is a Pester test. They are really easy to write. They only have a few parts. You have a describe, and that's just a logical grouping. You just give it a logical name. You have a context, which is a subgroup. Doesn't do anything, just gives your stuff a logical name. You just figure this out yourself. You don't even need them, but it's easy to keep track of where you are in your checks. The actual check is that it statement. It, what am I testing? And then the test that you're doing. And the test that I'm doing right here, I'm saying true, pipe, should be something. And I'm checking if true is true. Of course this will succeed, right? But you can put anything you want up here. Do I have a backup every day of all my databases? Do I have less than 5 or less admins in domain admins in my AD? Whatever you want. You can do check the AD and count the domain admins. Pipe should be less than 6 or should be 5 or something, right? You can. It's up to you, right? If it's important to you, put it in there. So that just does this. Let me clear that. It doesn't come out twice. That's all it does. Now, there is a lot of documentation about it. You can give it parameters, give it a list of servers, like here's my list of servers, go check. How many admins are on the box? You go check all of them. You can save the results to an XML file. And I've even seen people that save the results to an XML file. This is, for developers, this is, I think, NUnit compatible. So your testing framework will understand what that means. But also, it's XML. So you can go in and go, count the number of errors I have in this thing. If there's something red come out, raise an event in the event log, and SCOM will pick it up. Maybe. SCOM might say, you have errors in your thing, go run them. I had a reporting system at a Dutch company. There were 5 SQL servers with hundreds of databases, and there was one report server where there was log shipping to it. That means backup jobs, copy jobs, restore jobs of a bunch of databases. And all the error you would get is a report user call you up and say, I think the thing is behind. You what? Which part? What is not working? There's so many moving parts. So you write a pester check that checks all the things that should be running of all the databases, and you just run it. Invoke pester, log shipping, enter. And if everything is green and one thing red, that's where you go look. Very simple. Really cool for troubleshooting. And automate that. Do that every day. Check everything every day. It's automated, right? So far, so good on the pester stuff. This is just an introduction. I don't want to teach you how to use pester. There's so much behind it, but it's really easy to write this stuff. And there's so many examples from people that do checks on Active Directory and Exchange and all these things that you can check in your own environment, how to write this in a pester test. They have a phrase for it. It's called OVF, Operational Validation Framework. Somebody actually built a framework in pester, but nobody uses it. But the name still got stuck, and people are still using this. And people are just writing it themselves. All right, last 10 minutes. We finally get to the PowerShell stuff. There we go. Oh, no. Okay. Good. Done with the slides, I can continue. Here's a cool part. What you can do, is you go to a library. In this case, it's for SQL Server, but you can reuse it for whatever. It's called DBA checks. Somebody, Rob Sewell, or Beardy, as he's called for friends, you can find him on Twitter as SQL DBA with beard, and his website is SQL DBA with a beard. On Twitter, he wanted to also do SQL DBA with a beard, but it's one character too long, so he was named SQL DBA with a bear for a while, until he noticed. He wrote a whole bunch of pester checks and put a framework around it that you can use. Now, if you install this thing, and this is for SQL Server, but nothing is stopping you to make other checks for other things. It doesn't have to be SQL Server, not at all. It's just pester tests. So what you can do, Control R, go left. If you have installed it, oh, don't press F5, André, press demo fail. Okay. Demo lesson. If you select a text in ISE, to run that selection is F8, not F5. That runs everything. All right, here we go. Go again. I can even have a demo fail and have time left. Ooh. Here you go. There is a whole lot of tests in this thing. All these sanity checks that you saw me do in Blitz and then some. Because the power of PowerShell is, of course, Blitz has to stick to whatever it can find in SQL Server. Blitz can go anywhere. It can go into, hey, there's a whole bunch of people there are groups that have rights in your SQL Server, and in that groups are other groups, and in that other groups are a whole bunch of people. You have more than 10,000 users on this thing. Are you sure that you want to do this? So it can go into your AD and check things, right? Now, you can run this stuff, and out come the green and the red. There is a documentation that describes how you can put your own pester checks that you've written in this system. So to add them to this list, it has a registry. So you can put your SQL servers or your domain controls or whatever you're doing in a list, and then you can just run it, and you don't have to add the list the whole time. It just has the list for you, and it will run whatever you need it to run. You can build exclusions. You can say, okay, that check, don't run that anymore. That check, I need to give you a parameter. Here's the parameter. And you can set that all up. It's well documented. If you don't find what you need, ping Beardy. He will help you. He's a really friendly guy. Now, when you run this, for instance, I'm going to run a check on auto-shrink and auto-close. Auto-close is weird, but auto-shrink is the work of the devil. Again, that guy is annoying. Auto-shrink and shrinking a database in general causes 100% fragmentation. If you have maintenance plans where you do rebuild index, and then the database grows, and then you do shrink, you've just rebuilt your index for nothing because it fragmented 100% again. Don't stop doing that. Don't shrink. Sometimes you see at a customer auto-shrink and auto-grow having a fight with each other. It's really funny to see. Okay, so I can run this, F8. And as you can see, it checked a lot of stuff right away on every database. It has all the parameterization built in. It takes all the databases that are online and checks all these settings. And it will yell at you if something is not set the way you want it to be, or the way it's supposed to be in general, like a best practice. Now, what you can also do, and here's the cool part, you can pass it through and say, update DBCC Power BI data source. That saves the result not as an XML and unit compatible thingy that you can parse. It saves it as our friend JSON. A JSON file comes out. If you've never seen JSON, it's like XML but without all the overhead of all the brackets. A lot of accolades though. Very hard, simple to read, very hard to write yourself. Does this need an accolade or a thingy or a comma? I am lost. So out comes a JSON file. And then there's a Power BI report. Here's Power BI again. It becomes popular under us geeks, right? So suddenly we can make pretty things, or reasonably pretty things. And Power BI report, you can just kick off by saying, this is built into the database check framework. The start DBC Power BI, because the update the Power BI source, put it in a specific location, C Windows temp, I think. That's what it put it. You can change that. And then this Power BI report reads that file. Now I have it, I don't have many interesting things going on here, so everything will be read. It will be a mayhem in that report. So Rob has prepared a demo thingy that I'm going to run. That will start my Power BI desktop and show me the state of my SQL servers. In this case, Rob's laptop in a very specific environment, so it's nice and clean. 5 minutes, thank you. Oh yeah, let's make this smaller. And this is how you monitor SQL servers. You check if everything is okay. This list is not something that anybody has to call you for in the middle of the night. This list goes on your backlog or your to-do list, and you fix it before it becomes an issue. That's what you do. Way less stress, right? Will they call me at night? No, this thing doesn't. This thing just says, hey, fix this or it will become a problem in a couple of months, not in an hour. That's the cool part. So, looks like I have some issues here. If I click on this, for this specific issue, 3/4 are fine, but a quarter is not. And this is the recovery model, should be set to full on every production server. It's not. You can set all those things. So this is what SQL people, let's call them that, SQL people, like to do these days. We are starting to hate all these monitoring things because, come on, all the time, every time, Patch Tuesday, you're supposed to put the server in maintenance mode. No admin does that. So every time the phone rings, yeah, you have an error, the server's unreachable. Oh, let me guess, it's the patch. Could be. Did it come back up after 5 minutes and everything is fine? Yes, then don't call me. Come on. If only monitoring tools were a bit smarter, right? But the way to monitor your systems these days, check for configuration drift. Every day, automate that stuff. Don't have a list in the morning of things that you need to do. Type some PowerShell, make it maybe into a pester test, stick it into a framework, maybe this one, if you like it, and then you can just open up this Power BI report. Everywhere where it says SQL Server, just go network or whatever you want to do with it. This is free, this is open, you can change it to whatever you want. Somebody even made a Grafana report, not even Power BI. There's other reports as well on this. It's just the idea and the framework that you can use. With that, let me see. With that, this is where you can reach me if you have any questions, or you can find me with a beer in my hand in a half an hour over there, and I'm happy to chat or show you again, or follow up, whatever you need, right? Any questions? No questions. End of the day, it's warm, it's tired. Let's get this over with, right? Did you guys have a good day? Was this useful? Cool. That's it. I'm done. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.